Welcome to UVTV, motherfucker. I had to kick spiritual ass and do this for my people. On God. Nia, nigga, for feather me, yeah. And today I'm going to be talking about how the fall of man in the Bible is an allegory about why mankind keeps getting trapped into human nature and also how to naturally become something beyond just that. Now, in general, just because it's coming from the Bible and the Abrahamic God, so you know what I'm saying, like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam and stuff like that, it's still gonna have some type of facial representation of some Jesuit or some rabbi or you know what I'm saying, some shit some Masons done wrote down and stuff like that, and then make it a global thing in English in some way, shape, and form to like colonize and capitalize and shit like that. But for the most part, the main point when it comes to all of creation and like the Garden of Eden and like Genesis and stuff like that, that part in a sense of how they looking at how we came into this existence and stuff like that, to some extent they're right. They just have to say it in a certain way to where they can be the facial representation. So you're gonna be sitting there thinking that some Zeus Jesus long beard motherfucker go come out the sky and come save y'all and all that type of shit. But for the most part, based upon the allegories that they coming from a better interpretation of how to look at it, I'm taking away that bias of what the fuck they talking about to give a broader representation of what the fuck they really trying to say from an overall perspective. And y'all don't get lost into, oh, God made us in our image and shit like that. No, they're trying to play God and make humanity look at it from their image of how they look at humanity and stuff like that. And then it'll clear up all the cloudiness and the fogginess when it comes to a lot of these preachers and teachers when it comes to Christianity and how they be looking at it. And you understand it from a more overall type perspective. And anytime I talk about something that's broad or from like the overall, I'm giving you that fruit, or I'm giving you that productivity, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like I'm giving you a way you can look at it so you can receive that for yourself, so you can take that and create your own way of how you want to do that in your own imagination. See, like I be doing shit based upon all possibilities, the overall God. So for me talking to that type sentiment, instead of like, oh yeah, you have to come to this church or you have to come to this denomination and shit like that. Oh, if you don't do it in this specific way of how I command and follow this 10 commandments and this, that, and the third, then you going to hell. No, I don't do that. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna show you the actual divine nature in it, so you can make up your own way of going about it, because I'm being a real nigga. Like, yeah, I ain't do it in no side type way. So yeah, you feel the genuinity behind when UV be saying some shit like that, or a motherfucker who actually gives a fuck just in general, because it's not just me. It's not just me who be in that sentiment. You know what I'm saying? You can tell when a motherfucker be genuine about when they doing something compared to, oh, they're just doing that to get a monetary gain out of you, or they have some type of alternative motive. I don't do that on this fucking channel. It's a spiritual channel. It's also can be a material channel. I just like talking about the gold mine and the spiritual side of things a lot, for the most part. I be into metaphysics. I be all into fucking you know what I'm saying? Like metaphysics and spirituality and actuality and creativity, productivity. I just be into that shit and like talking about that more. But that don't mean I can't ground myself in reality and make some sense out of something. I'm still triple earth, nigga. I'm still towards sun and moon, cap rising, all that type shit. I'm still gonna ground it, and I'm still gonna make it look real. I'm gonna still make it relative to the physical in so much shape and form, so you can make it make sense, so you can add it to some type of pattern, or you can have a value system out of it, or you can get some type of status off of it to show you, oh, okay, this is an actual thing that can play out for real, and this nigga ain't just talking about some pseudo bullshit. So look, at first, Adam and Eve lived with God in the Garden of Eden. Look at Adam and Eve like the divine masculine, divine feminine. The masculine energy is like a thought and idea, and then the feminine energy is like a feeling and an emotion. The man like to externalize, women like to internalize. That's why men be having a dick and balls, and then women have a womb, and they like to take in and receive things, right? So a man's gonna build and try to find some type of direction, or what y'all be calling, oh, they have to be a provider. And then a woman is going to be in the motherly, nurturing type of energy, and is going to support whatever the masculine decides. You know what I'm saying? Because they like to internalize and receive. So they're going to try to make you feel good in the internal realm. And then the man is going to set up some type of situation or circumstance that's based upon constructing a building to have a better direction on how to go about that. You know what I'm saying? So in a sense, right, based upon the man being the thought and idea about something, and the giver and the externalizer or the provider, the female is the accumulation of that. You know what I'm saying? So the same way how people be like, oh, men are like the light, and then women are like the darkness, or like men are like the yang, and then women is like the yin and shit like that. The yin or the darkness is an accumulation of light. You know what I'm saying? That's why when it comes to men in general, they don't Like, it's not to say they don't have emotions and feelings, but they don't tend to deal with the emotions and feelings because they want to come up with some type of thought and idea to be above that feeling and emotion type shit. It's not to say they need to get lost into some stoicism because you still got feelings and emotions. It's to acknowledge, okay, how can we take this feeling and emotion and make it more broad for a better direction of where the fuck we want to go, so we can build and construct a better lifestyle for ourselves and stuff like that, to make it like super, super simple. So from the female, right? For the female, they help the man with the emotional intelligence, and then the man help the female with like overall intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Like logical intelligence is the shit I should be saying. Like logic and like rationality and practical thinking. They help them with that type of intelligence. So a man can have a thought and idea and make an ego out of that, of where they can observe it and oversee it. And then the female will show them, hey, you can't get too lost into that ego. You have to, you know what I'm saying, be grounded in, you know what I'm saying, you have to make a feeling and emotion out of it so people can feel what the fuck you saying. Because if you be into that super dry, nonchalant, stoicism type of mindset and shit like that, okay, you just built the building, but you ain't doing nothing to attract motherfuckers to that building, right? Because they don't resonate with what the fuck you doing, then it's gonna fall on its head and shit like that. So you can build and construct all you want, right? You can build and construct and play out that idea and that thought, but if no one can receive or no one feels that idea or resonate with it, like I'm naming a whole bunch of different internal energies, but it's literally just that. If no one feels no type of emotion for the thing you trying to get that attention towards, no one's gonna give a fuck about it. So the man is gonna be like, oh, they like to pay attention to shit, and the female, they like to turn that attention to make people attracted or receive what they're paying attention to. You get what I'm saying? So that's what that is with that Adam and Eve concept, in a sense. The Adam would be the thought and idea, the divine masculine. The Eve, your Eve, is like the divine feminine, or the feeling and emotion, right? And then they live with God, all possibilities, in the Garden of Eden. Look at the Garden of Eden, the Garden of God, the Garden of all possibilities. So from it being a garden, that means it's different plants there, it's different fruit, it's different trees, it's different. It's a very organic ecosystem and stuff like that. The same way how when you plant a seed for an idea and you let that thing grow and you give it nourishment, and you know what I'm saying, you see that blossom the same way that how it happened in springtime. It's the same thing when it comes to the Garden of Eden. All the possibilities for your ideas to grow based upon how you pay attention to it and how you how you nourish and fertilize that seed. Yeah, that's those are the words I was looking for. But the serpent tempted them into eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge, or the tree of life, which God had forbidden. So the forbidden fruit. Look at the serpent like the same way how you got snakes in your grass and shit like that. Look at that as a desire. Something that's treacherous, something that's like a lower temptation, something that's deceitful, something that's deceptive in some way, shape, and form. So when Eve ate the apple and then gave it to Adam, that's that feeling and emotion, that pleasure, and you giving that thought attention based upon how you feel about it. You get what I'm saying? So based upon how you feel about that emotion and feeling, basically what Eve did by listening to the snake, that desire, that lower desire, right? He, like her giving it to Adam, you're paying attention to that thought. You paying attention to that idea based upon that fruit that made you feel good because you ate the apple, and then the apple is a type of nutrient, a type of food that makes you feel good when you eat it, type shit. And after doing so, they became ashamed of their nakedness, and God expelled them from the garden to prevent them from eating the fruit of the tree of life and becoming immortal. And that's the fall of man's story and how they fell into sin, right? So that whole allegory in itself, from them eating the forbidden fruit after being tempted by the snake, aka that desire from that tree of life, you are that tree. That's the symbolism. You're supposed to be the tree. You're able to grow, go through growth and nourishment as a person, and you able to bear fruit. aka look at that as you able to bear ideas based upon the seeds you plant in the Garden of Eden. So you can have good ideas and you can have bad ideas, but regardless, you are the observer, the creator of these of these ideas, of those fruits, of that garden, of those trees, of that sentience. You give life to these things based upon that dream imagination and that creativity from your personal perspective and how you go about it. So that's the epitome of a motherfucker who have like a dream or some type of passion or motivation of what gives them adrenaline and what makes them wake up every day, and they give it life. They give it sentience. They try to make that dream come true to make it come up into the physical reality in some way, shape, and form. So from them paying attention to those ideas, they're going to create and cultivate some type of way to make that be birthed into reality that we can see. So taking the unseen realm, the metaphysical realm, the imagination realm, the subconscious realm, and making it conscious, making it something that we can see, make it emanate a light, make it so it's in the physical and it can live out in some point in time, to show you that it's possible to do that through God, all possibilities. So the same way they got tempted by the snake, right, due to deception and deceitfulness and stuff like that, it's trying to show you, oh, okay, they got ashamed of their nakedness because they was naked. It's basically trying to show, not because y'all get too lost into the physical and shit like that. Y'all look at it like, oh, them actually becoming immortal and humans living forever and stuff like that. No, they're just using man-like figures as symbolism and shit, and them being naked. They're showing, oh, you being able to be naked in spirit. You being naked in spirit is you being naked in your space. So look at that as you're able to be vulnerable. So look at that as from you being vulnerable, you able to be yourself no matter who you around. So those are like motherfuckers who like celebrities and stuff like that. So they could be around a million motherfuckers, but they still know how to come as themselves genuinely. They don't get lost into some type of narrative. They don't get lost into some societal norm. They don't get lost into what already got created or what they're expected to do and get lost into other people's expectation. The only thing they're going to expect is, oh, I'm going to genuinely be myself no matter the circumstance based upon what I'm paying attention to and what I'm doing at the moment and stuff like that. And the way y'all analyze whether what I'm doing is righteous or wrong or productive or counterproductive or good and bad, that's here no there. That's relative. What's good for you could be bad for someone else, and what's bad for someone else could be good for you type shit, or like vice versa. Like when someone else do some shit, if you try to do it, you couldn't do it the same way they do. You couldn't do it the same way they did it because you're not them. That's why we all have our own mind. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna be no thing where it's like, oh yeah, we all gonna come together as one to be one consciousness and stuff like that. We can move like a tribe, we can move like a village, we can all have that same goal and we all move as a unit and shit like that. But we all gonna have our personal perspective of how we gonna do that one motive, that one passion, that one thing, that, you know what I'm saying, and lead charge into that and dream at the teamwork. Yeah, that exists, but we still gonna have our personal perspective of how we look at it, aka our subjective point of view. But if we all have the same common goal, the same objective point of view, right? And we put all our, you know what I'm saying, willpower into that, then we're going to bring more possibilities of things that look impossible and make it possible into this realm of reality, in the physical, in that natural transition. So it's literally the epitome of motherfuckers who don't give a fuck. Not give a fuck in the sense of, oh, they don't care. No, they do care. But they don't give a fuck enough to where, oh, you're not going to stop me from how I'm supposed to create. You're not going to stop me of how I like to be productive. You're not going to stop me in what I created, aka this culture I'm trying to make for myself and stuff like that, and doing it for my people who are in the same sentiment that I am in and stuff like that. So when you get lost into lower desires, into sin, into temptation, that's when you feel shamed about your nakedness, aka you look at you being vulnerable or you being genuine, you being yourself. You start questioning, are you doing the right thing or not? So that's the epitome of, oh, some celebrity going through some type of scandal, and then they start going through some type of press run of trying to apologize and all that type shit, and all of a sudden they start feeling bad because they start questioning, like, was that the right thing for me to do? Was that the right way I'm supposed to react? You know what I'm saying? I'm supposed to be a role model. I'm supposed to be an example to these people, when you're not supposed to give a fuck about that either, because there's nothing in the world there's no one telling you that unless it's self-projection and you're just in a certain position and they tell you, oh, you're supposed to do it like this because you're supposed to be a role model and shit like that. Who told you you're supposed to be born to be a role model? You know what I'm saying? Who told you you're supposed to be born to be the example? Like, you can be a walking example, but it has to be naturally and organic. Like if someone to follow in your footsteps and look at you as like inspiration, that's gonna be a natural response. When you try to like force that onto other people and make people look at you like in like an ego, like, oh yeah, you're supposed to look at me like I'm greater than you. You're supposed to worship me because this, that, and the third. That's the thing that's counterproductive, because it's not genuine at that point. You look at it like, oh yeah, you gotta look at me like I'm all possibility. You supposed to look at me like a deity. You supposed to look at me like I'm God, when you can't be the overall God in that perspective and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like if you was able to create everything on your own, then nigga, you get into like, you would literally, The same way how y'all look at a Big Bang. Okay, you start a Big Bang then, motherfucker. You create the world from your thought and then see what happened. And then that's where you're gonna go spiritually and shit like that. But that's a different topic. So overall, that's what the fuck they talking about when they saying, oh, them becoming immortal and stuff like that. No, you being like you're only gonna be here for a certain point of time, aka your light body, which is your mind, and then your second body, which is your physical body and stuff like that, right? And the way you're able to change your mind, the same way how your body is gonna change physically as you age and you start to get old and deteriorate, and then you end up dying one day, right? But the only thing that's eternal is your spirit, the space you was in, your creativity, your abilities, your power, your capabilities that you're naturally and organically able to do from you being yourself. So from you having that type of spiritual insight and intuition and inspiration, inner smile, and you being in that space, that's how you're able to come back, because you was able to go into the membrane and archives of who you was, and you able to be who you is no matter the lifetime. So that's you dying in this type of lifetime and this type of body, and then you come back greater because you believe in something greater than yourself type shit, because that's all spirituality is. You believing in something that's greater than you. So that's like what one motherfuckers be talking about when it comes to, oh, you have to listen to your higher self and all that type shit. That's all that's talking about. So if you're able to keep on, if you're able to expand and contract, you keep on expanding the parameter, expanding your mind, expanding your capabilities, expanding your abilities, expanding your productivity, expanding your creativity, expanding and like your creativity and all that type shit, and you're able to encapsulate into that mind, but then expand out of it again, and you keep having some type of adrenaline blood flow pulse the same way. When motherfuckers check when you're alive, do you got a pulse and shit like that? You have to be like that when it comes to your mind too. So it's the same way how like 5 years ago you can think one way, and then 5 years later you don't think the same way no more. You want to know why? Because you went through different experiences from you being a spirit, the observer, the creator, and you start looking at it differently 5 years later and going through those different transformations and transitions and mutations and evolution in a sense, right? And you evolve past that way of thinking at one point. So you used to think one way when you was 20 years old, and then as you become 25, you don't think that way no more. It's the same thing. You was able to expand that way of thinking, expand that stream of consciousness, expand that feeling, and you feel a different way of how you used to feel about that thing. So you react and respond with a different emotion. So that could be something like, oh, you went through some type of traumatic shit 5 years ago, and the way you used to go about it was super like chaotic, and you didn't know how to deal with it, and you felt super overwhelmed. And then 5 years later, you barely react and respond to that shit. You kind of look back at that shit like, yeah, it was traumatic, but you can sit back and laugh because you wouldn't be you today, and you learned the lessons off of doing after going through all that trauma and stuff like that, and you look at it from a different viewpoint in a different lens, and it's not traumatizing you. It's not putting you in survival mode. It's not making you, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not shocking your system and shit like that, and your nerves and stuff like that. You don't get nervous. You just look at it like, oh, damn, that was fucked up. But you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. That's life. So that's the thing they're talking about when it comes to being immortal and stuff like that. Not being immortal in the physical, because these bodies are going to deteriorate. And as your mind deteriorate and stuff like that, all the way down to what motherfuckers be talking about when people get so old, they start getting dementia, they start forgetting shit. Yeah, you're going to go through that, but you're going to become immortal in spirit though. Like, you know what I'm saying? You always going to be able to come back into sentience, into this shape and form, into this body, because your spirit like making bodies. It like making new thoughts. It like making new feelings. It like making new emotions. So it condenses into a mind state. It's going to condense again into the physical, and that way make your organs, and your organs is just different awarenesses. So look at that the same way you had the chakra wheel and cycles and shit like that. You're going to have different eyeballs, different awarenesses, different ways of looking at shit. And you able to hang on to all those different willpowers and wheels and cycles and all that type shit. Not know, oh, you just get lost into the third eye chakra and the crown chakra and the higher chakras and shit like that. Nigga, you got other chakras. It's just, these are just the exalted versions of what you're doing down here. So yeah, it's good to be in your higher natures and stuff like that, but you still in the physical, you're going to be in your lower natures too, because your lower natures wouldn't make what your higher natures is. So when y'all get lost into that type of thinking, y'all be looking at it like, oh yeah, I'm gonna end up going into the celestial bodies, into the sky, into the atmosphere, and going to heaven with God, all possibilities and shit like that. But eventually, from you thinking like that, you're gonna make a hell out of a heaven type shit, because y'all gonna look at it like, oh, this is like the perfect place to be, the perfect realm, the perfect world, and all that type shit. But your imperfections is what make you perfect, because you ain't gonna be having shit to do at that point. You get what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna get bored as fuck. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna like, bro, like that's the epitome of like a motherfucker who say stuck and stagnant into one way of living, and they're forced to change their circumstances and shit like that. So they forced to move out their neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Because of like, let's say like kind of like how they gentrify in Atlanta and shit like that. So they was forced to move because the prices kept on going too high and stuff like that. So you had to go to a different area or a different hood or a different neighborhood and shit like that. Or you had to adapt or get like a better job so you can keep up with the price range of the new shit that they building because they gentrifying shit for the most part. And you start being really stubborn about that shit because you going resistant against change in a sense. But that's literally like that same concept. You're gonna be old as fuck, bitter because you still in the same scenario, same circumstance, same surrounding, same situation, same way of thinking, same feelings, and you never change how you looked at it. So yeah, you're gonna stay stuck into a previous mind state or a pocket of time or memory, right? So yeah, that was cool during the 90s and the 2000s, but we in 2026. We ain't doing that shit no more, motherfucker. Grow the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? You have to mature. Like even though you could be a whole adult, in spirit, you still a fucking child. You know what I'm saying? You still thinking like when you was a kid, oh, it was like this back in the day, because this, that, and the third. Okay, we're not in no times. No more old ass nigga, old man. You know what I'm saying? Old woman, grandma, like, goddamn. So yeah, that would be like the fountain of youth or the key to immortality and stuff like that. You being able to be vulnerable as a spirit and you able to live on in that based upon your creations and your capabilities because you're the observer and you're the creator. And then when y'all talk about the god and the goddesses and stuff like that, that's you being in a godly shape and form. You know what I'm saying? In a glorified body, a godly body. Being part of the holy, however the fuck y'all want to look at it. I'm just using different examples of what the fuck y'all be talking about. But like, yeah, like that would be like the broader sense of what the fuck they talking about for the most part. So by Adam's falling to sin, aka human nature, it became corrupt, even though it retained the image of God. So it's like, yeah, sin is universal. So the same way how y'all look at the 7 deadly sins, like pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, right? Y'all supposed to look at sin as in desires, because that's why it has that in there, and then it says in. So is the desires that you're in a shape and form. And your first thing, that mentality that you went into, aka your light body, your first body, is your mentality. So you have your own subjective mentality of how your mind work. So that's where that whole spirit, mind, body concept be coming from and shit like that. Because your spirit like to create shapes and forms that it can go into, because your spirit is your space, and that's no shape and form. So you start creating a shape and form that you can go into because your spirit like to experience shit. It like to expand and contract. It like to expand its mind and go into a mind. Light body, physical body. Your mind into the physical is going to condense, and that's what make your blood, adrenaline flow, and your organs and all that type shit. So it's like, yeah. And then all the way down to what they be talking about with the dragons and shit like that, and the dragons being the flying serpent. Those are like higher desires. Those are like higher passions that are able to fly and stuff like that, and be a part of the atmosphere, the sphere at most, that the world at most. So you create your own atmosphere. You create, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's you taking your desires and making it into a lighter shape and form. So light as in weight. So it's not something that's heavy. So it's not too condensed. So you ain't getting too lost into the physical creations in society and the things that already got created based upon, like, you know, like the government or the different programs they put you in, or like TV shows and like Walt Disney and shit like that. You'll be in that type of mentality. Oh, let me create my own type of music. Let me create my own type of TV show. Let me create my own type of network. Let me create my own type of way of how I like to build houses and stuff like that. Anything that puts you in a creative, productive, trying to make a culture out of it type mentality, but from your subjective point of view of how you want to imagine it, so that mental image and how it go in your mind, and you try to find some type of creative new type of passion, creative new type of word, creative new type of world to go into and stuff like that. You are already creating that world, and you want other people to be a part of that world. So you expanding your space, which automatically is gonna make you go through more experiences and shit like that, because you want to experience that into the physical, because your spirit, no shape and form, trying to make shapes and forms. You want to play out the idea, you want to play out that thought, you want to play out that feeling, you want to play out that emotion and actualize it, and it adds onto the overall space that you're in. So it's like, yeah, you like, so it's the epitome of what the fuck y'all be talking about. The higher chakras are the higher desires, and the lower chakras are the lower desires. But it's supposed to be a balance. You're always gonna have both. The same way how you did that with your organs, based upon your mind making these different shapes and forms, organs, blood flow, your brain, your heart, you know what I'm saying? Like the different muscle tissues and shit like that, your lungs, You know what I'm saying? Your balls and or like when it comes to females, their ovaries and shit like that. Like you made these different shapes and forms the best we know how, and then we just at a point to where we're in human type bodies right now, like human mankind type bodies right now. So we fell into man type shit. Like that's the furthest we don't went to so far type shit. So this is why a lot of motherfuckers be coming back and they come back as humans. So is it because we just humanity hasn't gotten to a point to where they went past or expanded into a different shape and form body that's beyond just a human? So what the fuck y'all be calling superhuman and shit like that? The same way how you could look at us being beyond animals and shit like that, like lions and shit like that, because we have more broad conscious awareness than they do. Even though we have a piece of those different, you know what I'm saying? Like mentalities and mind states, like birds and like tigers and like mountain lions and all that type shit. Like we have a piece of those things because we were those things at one point, but we was on that train of line of reasoning as spirits, and we was doing that before the animals and the species and shit like that we had today. We've been doing that than them longer. So that's why they'll take a human vessel, because our awareness is just more broad than theirs. You know what I'm saying? Our attention span is just more broader than theirs. So at this point, humanity and man is trying to become something beyond just that. You know what I'm saying? In these type of bodies right now, is us being human. So humankind or mankind is trying to do it in a one of a kind type of way, and that's the only way that's gonna happen. We have to act out things in a one of a kind, individualistic nature, to where we can come together and bring our minds together of motherfuckers who be thinking one of a kind. So motherfuckers who try to think of the most out there idea, the most out there imagination and shit like that. Look at it as a motherfucker where it be like, oh, this motherfucker is super creative. This motherfucker is super imaginative and shit like that, no matter the circumstance or where they at. So look at it like that. We're trying to expand our conscious awareness to be something beyond what we is right now type shit. Because at this point, yeah, we're the most conscious, subconscious people on the planet, on Earth right now, of how it got condensed. And yeah, that whole like allegory when it comes to the fall of man and mankind gets trapped into human nature and shit like that. So human nature, in a sense, right, would be us getting trapped into sin. So we're gonna fall, but we also gonna be able to create a new way of how to go about it and shit. So the fall of man, or like fallen angels and shit like that, right? All is talking about the same way how you look at you know what I'm saying? Like getting lost into the 3D or the third dimension or the physical realm and shit like that. We're trying to be something beyond just that. We're trying to be 4th, 5th, 6th dimensional. You know what I'm saying? We trying to be into the spiritual realm, the astral realm, and all that type shit. So the more we expand our creativity or our imagination and making a culture, that's how we do that. It just has to be an organic, genuine type of way, and it can't be in no synthetic motherfuckers trying to play God. No, we're trying to make all possibilities come down here in some way, shape, or form, even if motherfuckers don't get it at first. And not no control version of, oh, motherfucker just don't get this motherfucker imagination shit like that, and it's just some white institution and no other cultures institution based upon them colonizing and capitalizing a whole bunch of different shit. Because a lot of scientists and motherfuckers in NASA and like Masons and Jesuits and a lot of shit when it comes to what's it called? A lot of shit when it comes to entertainment, business, religion, politics, education, they be blocking a lot of that. Like they don't want motherfuckers to be doing that on their own, all the way down to content creators and stuff like that. So from you being a content creator, you're gonna be creating content. You're gonna create your own way of going about it, because you can be a personality and you're able to put your personality into many different shapes and forms and shit like that. So if a motherfucker come with some new type of knowledge or new type of wisdom or new type of creativity or some new type of idea or new type of imagination and shit like that, and they start talking like how the fuck I'm talking right now, they don't like motherfuckers who think like that unless you're in their industries instead of you creating your own industry. They want you to be into their institutions instead of you making your own institution. You know what I'm saying? They want you to get lost into their history instead of you making your own history. You know what I'm saying? Like making your own, making your own culture, having your own story behind how you did that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So that whole allegory, in a sense, when it comes to the fall of man, that's all that is. And it's just symbolism of getting lost into the physical. So getting lost into sin. So when you get lost into a mentality based upon pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, and get lost into your mind, a specific memory, a specific pocket of time, aka a specific thought or a specific feeling or specific emotion in some way, shape, and form, a specific masculine, a specific creation that you already done created, instead of creating some new way of how to look at it, that's you falling into sin. So the same way how you look at fall time and fallen angels, okay, you went from a higher angle and then you fell into a lower angle. It got condensed. You get too lost into the physical, so you start doing things from the outside in, not from the inside out. You let the external world dictate what you want to do, and then you get lost into self-projecting because you don't know how to self-reflect right. And you know what I'm saying? You start internalizing the shit that you can see. So you start internalizing the external in some way, shape, and form, instead of you just coming as yourself and your personal insight, intuition, imagination, and then you admitting that out, and then that can be brought to discussion if that makes sense or not, or if that is a good idea or not. But you ain't gonna let that stop you be you because you believe in something that's greater than yourself type shit. So the more you get lost into other people's ways of how to do that, and you want someone else to come and save and rule and dictate how you supposed to think and shit like that. So look at that as like motherfuckers like the presidents and stuff like that, or the way they trying to run that the government and rule, aka the government being the governing mentality. You want to look to them for their judgment. You want to look to them, oh, they gonna get this right when it come to justice. Oh, they gonna get this right when it come to ICE and shit like that. Man, I'm not gonna get into politics and worldly things and stuff like that, but you get what I'm saying? Like, you want them to dictate how the world gonna work and shit like that. So you creating your own world away from that, but still making it relative to the world in some way, shape, or form, then that's all that's gonna happen. So instead of you creating your own wave in your own world, your own atmosphere, you get lost into this sun, into this moon, into this atmosphere, into this societal norm, into this government, into this institution, into this into this what was I about to say, education, into this entertainment, into this world of how to rule the world and shit like that, and politics and shit like that. So you're making your own way if you was into that position, and then you might even look at it as you being into that for real, like you having that as like a goal that you want to strive for. But if you was into that position, you'll try to look at it in the best way you can of, oh, what if I was in that position? And you're going to try to make it the most genuine and the most relatable and make it the most in sync to make it make sense into this world and reality based upon some type of logic or rationality and practicality and things based upon helping the people, and you doing something that's self-service. So you being a service to the people instead of doing something that's self-serving, something that feeds your ego. So you being an esoteric maiden, not you taking power control and trying to play the maiden, but you just want motherfuckers to worship your ass and shit. So yeah, the fall of men is just like kind of like when they talk about like Lucifer and he fell from grace and shit like that out of heaven, dictated by God, all possibilities and stuff like that. It's like in he supposed to represent Venus and shit like that. All it's talking about from him going into springtime into fall time. So that's like 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. if we was talking about astrology. So that's Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius and shit like that. So during the fall time, during autumn time, literally, that's when the leaves start to fall and deteriorate, because during the springtime they start to blossom and bloom and get pollinated by the different insects and plants. And then during the summertime is the most is when everyone outside, is when the sun um is always out and shit like that. Um what's that shit called? Like daylight savings time or whatever the fuck. Like I forget if it's like that's when daylight savings stop, or like when it stops. Well, regardless, that's when it be the most bright outside in general, right? Motherfuckers start being on vacation, motherfuckers start being outside more, you know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers start going to the beach and shit like that, because it's more fruitful outside, you know what I'm saying? Everyone can do things in life in general more outside and shit like that, based upon the seasonal transition that we in. And during the fall time, that's when it start getting more colder, a little bit more cool. Ain't as much as wintertime as super cold and distant, but it start to get more chill and cool, and the breeze, and then the leaves start deteriorating and shit like that. And then people start going through harvest season and start getting all their crops, because the seeds and the fertilizer and the plants that they growing in them crops ain't gonna be able to grow as efficiently during that time. So all that shit actually plays out naturally, organically in life in general, and people move with that seasonal transition, and that's what it's talking about. If I want to talk about it from an astrological perspective as well, based upon that allegory. So that's a good time, you know what I'm saying, to work on things behind closed doors. So that's Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius type of energy, right? And that's more into the physical. So Libra would be initiating, creating new ways to think and communicate when it comes to love, value, and appreciation based upon your relationships and being relative. So it could go into Scorpio type of energy. So it being fixated on that. So it being fixated and adamant and stubborn in its own way of dealing with the emotions and feelings when it comes to the behind the scenes realm, or deep passions and motivations, or alternative motives, or what's in the dark, or what you can't see. So it can go into Sagittarius type of energy, so being mutable, adaptable, changeable to your own and other people's ways of seeing and feeling when it comes to intuition and visions and burning through reality. When it comes to knowledge, wisdom, experiences, morality, God, spirituality, education, all that type shit. So all that get condensed into the physical in some shape or form, because that deals with things more of the third dimension. And then Aries through Virgo is above the horizon. We talking about below the horizon. Things are more below the horizon. It's things that got more condensed. So it's something that's dealing with the physical in some shape or form. So look at that as, oh, Aries through Gemini would be like the spiritual astral realm, right? The unconscious realm. The Cancer through Virgo will be like the metaphysical realm, the subconscious realm. And then Libra through Sagittarius will be the conscious realm, the physical realm. You get what I'm saying? So that's the fall of man, in a sense. It's when man fell from grace. It's when Adam and Eve fell from grace. It's in some shape or form. It failed the same way during fall and autumn time for the most part. So it's literally the epitome of God, all possibilities, coming as man, because we're the closest shaping form when it comes to the physical for that body to hold that conscious awareness in the physical right now. And that's all that is. So you can just look at that as God falling from the spiritual seat it was in and created a mentality, a mind, and got condensed into the physical, and it's gonna live that space that it was in the physical out. It's gonna play out that thought. It's gonna play out that idea. It's gonna play out that Adam and that Eve. You know what I'm saying? It failed. And then once this first body dies, this second body is gonna die, and then you're gonna get reborn into the space that it was in. So you're still gonna come back, because that's all the allegory is. You're still gonna come back. You're just gonna come back based upon some type of godly judgment. So all possibilities. So it's either you're going to get grace because you spent majority of your life trying to expand your mind, expand your conscious awareness, expand your dreams, expand your imaginations, and you create for yourself, and you did it at your own volition without relying on other people's methodology of how they want to go about it. You let all possibilities play through you to make it possible for the type of dreams that you have, and it's not supported by other people's institutions and educations and entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like the shit I was talking about earlier. And you did it genuinely at your own volition, or is you go through that process when it comes to spiritual evaporation, aka you didn't have no spirit, you didn't have no soul, you didn't have no resonance, you didn't have no new way of going about it, you didn't have no imagination. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have no sentience. You didn't live your life for real. You know what I'm saying? Because you sentient right now. From you being sentient right now, you already went through this process a whole bunch of different times already. So that's why I said earlier with the whole, oh, we've been doing this longer than animals and insects and all that type shit, because we have a longer attention span than they do. So we went through many shapes and forms and many different bodies and many different thought forms and many different mind states and streams of consciousness and all that type shit. And we kept adapting, we kept pivoting, we kept transforming, we kept mutating, we kept evolving, we kept changing it. So the more you stay stuck into a memory bank, into one pocket, to what looks like it's something familiar. So the same thing when it's talking about this Christian religion text, and you take this shit too literal and you interpret it the way they want you to interpret it, the way the Jesuits and the Masons and shit like that wrote it, you're just gonna come back as man. You're just gonna come back, even if you're in a human body, right? And we still, if humanity still ain't got to that point to where we got to something beyond just a human and shit like that, you're just gonna come back more frustrated. You're gonna come back more theologian like. You're gonna come back more atheist like. You ain't gonna believe in something bigger than yourself and shit like that. You're just gonna come back and get lost into this realm of reality of what that looked like. So from you getting lost into this shape and form and something that is an accumulation of something that already got created and shit like that, you're just gonna come back more lost into your desires. You know what I'm saying? You're just gonna get tempted by anything type shit. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna try to make no dragon snake like higher desire, passion, motivation, creation, whatever the fuck you want to call that shit, instead of you know what I'm saying, for you creating yourself and you observing and you trying to add more life and pulsating and adrenaline blood flow for what the fuck you trying to create in this life form, you keep condensing it, you keep crushing it. So that's you crushing your dreams. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like crushing it. Like anytime you get that opportunity to actually do that shit, you kick that shit to the curb. You squish that shit like a can because you feel like you ain't capable of doing it. So it's literally the epitome of that. You never actually played it out for real. You never took that chance. You never took that risk type shit because you wanted to be safe. You wanted to be safe. You was playing it too safe. You was playing it too secure and shit like that. You didn't want shit to change for real. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, like this is deep shit for real. You have to care about the mysticism. I mean, yeah. You have to care about the mysticism behind the history. So what's your story before it gets externalized as history and motherfuckers start studying about what the fuck you did? If all you did was based upon what other motherfuckers did, then who is you? Who is you? Like you ain't showing motherfuckers in your vulnerable naked state. You ain't showing motherfuckers who you is type shit. Like how you want to let that shit run? Like how you gonna let your story go? You gotta authorship your shit. Not let motherfuckers dictate your story and they the authors and they gonna run off of your intellectual property and your mentalities and your ideas and your shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, you gotta protect that shit. On God, you gotta protect that shit. On God, you gotta fight for that shit for real. But yeah.